Hey y'all, welcome back to Rich Girl Real Talk, where the vibe is elevation and joy. I'm your host, Erica Rich, and I'm so happy that you're with me today. Today's episode is titled The Real in Real Estate, and I'll be conversing with a wonderful real estate agent named Constance Boyce, and she's going to be talking about her perspective as to, what it was that helped her balance her personal life as well as her career goals, especially being a mother, being a wife, being a goal getter. Sometimes it can be rough trying to figure out how to navigate that space. And no, nobody all has it together, or it's not a perfect construct that we can all just say, okay, this is the cookie cutter. And we get a chance to really just dive into that with her, and for her to share her experience as it pertains to how she's finding her way, navigating that space. And ultimately, I hope that you are enriched by it, because she definitely shares some really good tidbits about real estate in this current state within the U.S. as well as in her local area, along with just figuring out what it is that she needs or requires to help her world go round. So I can't wait till you all hear it. But before we even get to it, I want you to don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions about this episode and or any of the previous episodes, you can hit me up on all my socials, RGRT Media. You can even go to my website, RGRT Media at at wix.com, or you could just hit me up on the socials as easy. I'll have everything linked below, as well as information for Constance as well. So with anything else on the agenda, I don't think we do have anything else. So it's time to get into the meat and potatoes, the real in real estate with Constance Boyce. And that is going to be happening in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
I love it. I love it even better. All right, so and joy. I'm your host, Erica Rich, and I'm so happy that you're with me today. Today's episode is called The Real in Real Estate. We will discuss what it takes to be a multifaceted queen in the world of real estate. I love the idea of just the queen and just queening all up in all of everything in her domain.
Yes.
Yes, girl, yes. We have a special guest with us to share her journey as she trailblazes her way through the Atlanta real estate community. This beautiful queen has been lauded with quite prestigious awards to show and prove her greatness. She's killing it, y'all. She is one of the top real estate agents at the Atlanta Communities brokerage firm. She's a devoted wife, an amazing mother of two of some of the cutest little they're so cute. They're so cute. And she's also a part-time model, because in the middle of all of her being superwoman, she's over here when she does come to the gram or when she does make her rounds, she's always serving face, always serving body on the and legs for days. I'm talking about this girl is so statuesque and fine with herself. And she's also serving fashion. She's always giving the label. She's always giving a little essence of all of the things. I mean, I just can't help but just give this queen her flowers. She's so dope. She's also an active member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a certified goal getter, and an all-around queen. Let's give it up for the gorgeous and accomplished Miss Constance Boyce.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so just blessed and humble to be in this space. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Oh, girl, I just you're so welcome, and no thank you, because honestly, you came to my mind. I was like, wow, I definitely want to talk to her, because I know that she's in a space where she's, dealing with figuring out mommyhood with two babies. She's got the hubby. She's got this, great career going. So I was like, I would love to just pick her brain as to what is it taking? How is she handling all these things? What it is that makes her continue to keep going? The tick tock of it all. So, this is the time for us to show and prove as women, like, we can do it. We have to find that balance, and sometimes it can be shaky, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. So before we get into like that balance of work and mommy life and wifey life and you time, let's talk about your journey. Share with us your journey that led you to real estate.
Yeah, so I was actually working. I started off in corporate America, kind of interning through college, and then started at Procter and Gamble. And my parents worked at Procter and Gamble. They retired from there, et cetera. So it in a sense was supposed to be home, or what I thought would have been my home career choice. But the more and more I was into it, it just didn't feel right. Something was just kind of off balance. So I transitioned from corporate America to more so of like the retail America side. And I became store managers, district managers, regional managers. All of this happened within about like a year and a half. I just kept kind of moving up the scale at a more rapid pace than normal. But
come on, Melanin Queen.
But in that space, the titles were there, but my workload was well overloaded. So I would be probably pulling in 60 hours a week and just not having that kind of personal time, or even any type of social life. I mean, I was working 24/7, and I just didn't feel as though that would, be sustainable for a long period of time. So in that moment, I just kind of spoke with my dad, who's kind of my advisor for all things of life, but spoke with him, and he's an investor kind of himself in the Ohio real estate market. So he said, well, why don't you try real estate? It seems like it'd be something that it would be beneficial for you. So back in 2007, I said, okay, I'll give this a try, and I started going to real estate school while I was still working. So I was attending school at night. But I just decided to make a jump for it. I said there could be no harm, and the most I could, or I just felt I wouldn't fail. And in terms of income wise, monetarily, I told myself if I can at least make as much money as I was making in, the retail management side, or even if it's a little less, it would be worth it to have a work-life balance. So with that, I jumped. I've had some great years and I had some horrible years, but over the last probably 10 years or so, it's been a pretty steady pace, and I've kind of built my business up, and it's been 15 years actually this year since I've been in real estate.
Yay! We got to give it up. 15 years? Oh
Yes,
my
ma'am.
gosh. Whoa. That is amazing, Constance. Like, that's so dope. So how long was the night class? Like, how long did you have to stay in that particular space of grind and day and then night? How long was that journey? How long was that space?
If I can remember correctly, I think it took me about 2 to 3 months to do it. So this was 3 nights a week that I was in school, from like 6 to 9, 6 to 10-ish, and just trying to have that balance to where I could go to school at night, to try to make it happen, because I definitely wanted to make it happen, but didn't want to, I wanted to set myself up to make sure that I'm still having income coming in while I was figuring things out. So I didn't want to transition without having the end goal of having the real estate license before starting.
Wow. And how is that? Take me through the process of getting to your test date. How extensive was your workload when it came to like studying for that exam? And like when the day that you got there and you're like, okay, this is it. Like, so tell me, walk me through what that felt like once you got to that point. And when you do you find out instantaneously? If you actually pass your exam, or do you have to wait?
Yeah, so obviously this 15 years ago was a different time in terms of technology and all of that. So the results were mailed to us. But I felt very good about the test, because we would take tests after each kind of milestone in the classrooms, and I always do very, very well on the test. Just because I was obviously interested in the topic. So I would just make sure that I was reading accordingly and, studying all the terms at night. But I always did very well on the test. And when it came to sitting for the actual board exam, I scored, I think it was in the 98th percentile. So, I passed it with flying colors.
Yay! Yes, girl. Yes, girl, boss. Yes, I love it. So, and then once you got your certification, here you are. So, what's your next step? Like, are you like, okay, am I going to go independent? Am I going to try to, like, what was your next step after you received your license?
Yep. So the next step after receiving your license, you are supposed to, air quote, hang your license with a brokerage. So that's my task, was just finding a brokerage company that I wanted to affiliate with. And in Atlanta at the time, Remax was a huge brand. It was just the brand to kind of be with. So I figured that I would kind of start there. And in working in the Buckhead area, it was sort of an easy transition for me to work with the Remax of Buckhead office, simply because the location proximity to where I was working at the time on the retail side, it would be easy for me to kind of jump over there to do some things if needed. So that's kind of, what I based my affiliation off of. And then they had a trainer at the time who was kind of trying to, catch me up to speed in terms of the actual workforce real estate aspect of it versus kind of everything that you see on the test, because it's kind of two totally different things in terms of testing and actually being in the field. So it was helpful definitely to have that trainer to kind of take me under her wing to help do the first deal or so to kind of get acclimated.
Right.
But it's a lot of people don't realize that the real estate world, if you're kind of jumping into it solo and you're not on anyone's team or anything, it's very cold. And cold in terms of being lonely, because it's just you. I remember getting a desk and a phone and say, here's your office. And you're responsible for getting your own business, your own marketing, your own leads. You're responsible for being you. There's no one to tell you you need to be in the office at a certain time. Whether you come into the office or don't come into the office, it's your business to build your way. So that was a very different space that I had to adjust to, because I was used to, in corporate or retail, you have to be somewhere at a certain time and you have to clock in or et cetera, or report to someone. Whereas real estate, you're reporting to yourself. And so it was just a very, very different aspect of, life that I hadn't really encountered, but I just jumped in, and I got started right away.
Wow. Well, I would imagine that a lot of that was easier for you to adjust to into it, creating your own space, creating your own. You're being an entrepreneur, but with the group, it seems like, because you're creating this space for you and the hours and the time. So my question to you is like, what were the learning curves that you had to deal with as it pertains to, when you first are jumping in and you're like, okay, like you said, you had your mentor and all those things. So what was like your first learning curve? Flying solo.
I would say just being a self-starter. It just setting my own pace in terms of, okay, what time are you going to wake up to start your day? Are you going to be the person that's in the office every day at 8 o'clock to get started? Or are you going to be the person that starts at 10 o'clock and you work until 8 o'clock? So just trying to figure out a balance in terms of what I wanted my home life and work life to look like. I remember some days just kind of sitting there because I didn't have anything to do. So just trying to figure out, what do I do or how do I get business, I think was a pretty hard kind of curve, to whereas now I'm in the position to where all of my business is coming to me on a referral basis.
Yeah.
Versus when you first start in the business, you're doing cold calling or different things like that to kind of drum up business. And so I think that was just kind of challenging to try to just really get started. But it's worth it.
I know that's right. Well, yeah. So now, so with that being said, I would have to say that there must have been some type of mantra that like, when you started your day off, like, I know that you said you had already kind of have started to build that structure for yourself. You were like, okay, now now I'm here. Now I have to ask you. So what was that mantra that kept you going when you were in that space of figuring out and navigating this new sector? If you had one.
Well, honestly, I knew that I wanted my days to be different because I was so used to everything is so repetitious and just a little too structured from where I was coming from. But and what I liked about the real estate world is that since I was creating my own, I didn't want any day to kind of be the same. So just kind of going through the day of, I'm going to make today different than yesterday, I think is what I kind of developed. And it works for me. Right. And I know everybody's different in terms of building their business, but that's what worked for me.
That's beautiful. I'm gonna make each day like different, and I love that because, of course, that reminds me of the scriptures. Like, God says He wants us to create a new song every day, so we should be inspired to do something different and try something different that He's already placed in our spirit to do, to walk in alignment with, for whatever that day should look like. So I definitely love that. Well, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, is she gonna sing the hook to Paper Chaser? Because of course, it was like you got your blocker for it. You got this. You have everything that you need to just keep going. But I think it's so funny how people have made that an affirming quote. Have you seen it online?
Yeah.
To me, I was like, you know what? But we need those daily mantras to keep us motivated and to keep us focused and aligned so that we can keep on walking towards the destiny. So I love that. And I love that it is about making each day count, making sure that you're trying something different and doing something different to continue to grow and expand. So my question with that is, what are some of the key tips that you would tell an aspiring real estate agent?
One, I would say, keep going. There are going to be dips and valleys in this business because that's just how it is. But keep going. It's going to pay off one way or the other in terms of, the streamline of business coming in. Definitely keep going. The other I would say is just make sure you're holding yourself in an upward light. So being honest and being true is hard to come by in this business. You be honest. Just make sure you're going to make mistakes along the way, but as long as you're being honest, it's going to take you a long way.
I know that's right. So, beautifully said. I love that. When would you say that you found your rhythm? Like, what year were you like, I found this sweet spot in me? Now, like you said, when it started, now the revenue and the people and the referrals are coming to you. When did you find that rhythm? What year do you think that was?
I would say probably year 4 or 5. And only because I started in the worst market ever to kind of get started in real estate. The real estate market had pretty much just crashed or was crashing. And so obviously people were upside down on their mortgages, and it was just obviously an awful time in that 2008 market. But it was, nobody knew kind of really what to do in that market. So tons and tons of agents were getting out of the business. And so it, took me a while to find a rhythm in terms of what to do with that. So I worked a lot of distressed properties. I worked short sales, foreclosures, all of that. The business that other people didn't want to do is what I did. And so kind of just, finding the niche and grinding in that moment to build that business up, I think probably started around year 4.
Year 4. Wow. And I noticed that you said you went to the things that people were, kind of I don't know if necessarily want to work those particular jobs. Right. But so I would assume that was really even built you up in a special way, because it's like, I've been able to go through this, master this in some form or fashion. Now, all this other stuff is small potatoes. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah. Agents didn't want to really do short sales because it's tedious. It's a lot of work. It's exhausting. Sometimes they could take anywhere from 3 months to a year to close. Wow. Because of the intricacies that's involved in doing the processes. But I worked them because, frankly, what other business did I have? You know what I mean? Right. So I took certification and trainings for that particular aspect of real estate to get better at it. And it got to the point where, other agents in my office were sending me those leads because they knew I could do them. So that just became kind of the things that I did to move forward in that particular market.
I know that's right. But see, that takes some guts to just say, you know what, I'm going to keep going towards this way. How long did the certification, what was that process of getting the certification for that piece? Since you've already, you had already finished the key components of you being able to get into the real estate sector. So how long did it take for you to get those certifications? Was it like a day program or like a few hours?
If I can remember correctly, it was a certain amount of hours. So it may have been 50 hours in terms of that particular certification course that I would take over a period of time, whether that was a couple weeks or something like that. I can't remember the exact time frame, but I do know that it was either 50 hours or 75 hours to be certified in that particular subject.
I love it. Girl, all I keep hearing is go getter. Let's do it. So I love it. I love to hear it, and I love your tenacity, because I know how I am when I'm laser focused into something. So what did it take for you? Because I know at that point in time you had just got married, if not about to get married. How was that?
Yeah. So I started in 2008. Got engaged, I think, 2010, and was married in 2012. So it was, I don't want to say it was a challenging process, because it really wasn't. It was very kind of seamless. Obviously, starting off, it was kind of those rocky couple of years. But, by the time that, Jesse and I were married in 2012, I had, pretty much found my rhythm from there, and was able to kind of, push forward with my career, while we were starting off our marriage. So, I was able to, buy our first house, obviously, in I think it was 2013, that we purchased our first townhouse. And obviously that I had the leg up on that just by being a real estate agent. So
absolutely,
that has helped us, obviously, to kind of move forward to the next level, to the home we're in now, et cetera. So it's honestly been really great.
Oh, and plus, since that makes it easier too, because what I'm hearing is that you weren't necessarily married to Jesse, when you actually started this journey. So you were able to be like team you, really team you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I like that because then, of course, your focus was different because it was like, I'm girlfriend, but I'm really grinding to do what makes Constance happy. So that's
Yep.
dope. And I love that because sometimes we need, in order for us to find that rhythm in our marriages, in our relationships, is, of course, we never want to forget who we are, what our goals are, and,
Mm-hmm.
continue to push towards that purpose,
Mm-hmm.
regardless
Mm-hmm.
of who is in that space with us. So,
Right.
yeah, I love it. Now, as a woman of color, how is
Mm-hmm.
that? How is
Ooh.
the real estate sector dealing with that space?
Yeah, so there aren't that many of us. There just aren't that many of us, African Americans in general, but African American females. It's the percentage is even lower. I don't know the exact percentage, but especially when I started, I mean, there are just not that many of us, and not that many that are doing above a certain amount annually in terms of income. So it it has its challenges. You have to kind of tap into different markets. There are some that are going to accept you, and there are some that are not, and you have to just kind of let that roll off your back, and just keep moving forward with your business the best you can, because I feel like that's probably life anyway. Some people just don't want to deal with African American women.
Wow.
And that is going to be a challenge, I think, in anyone's business, and not just mine. But obviously, when you're dealing with buying and selling a high dollar amount for anyone, they want to be comfortable. Anyone wants to be comfortable who they're comfortable with. And so finding that, challenge that certain people just don't want to deal with African American women, I don't want to say that it hurt my career in any way, but it was just something that it was just like, okay, I understand that, we're still in that era of life, to whereas, African American women are kind of on the bottom, so to speak, of the totem pole. But I've never kind of really let that affect my life or my business. I just keep moving.
Wow. And I would take it that being that you're in the South and being in LA, Atlanta's quite diverse and it seems pretty liberal in a sense, but, you still get those same, some of those same hiccups, unfortunately, that we deal with on a grander scheme internationally.
Right.
That's really sad, but it's like you said, it's a real thing, but you don't allow it to define where you go. You just keep pushing, and I love that. But that's got to be like, do you have like a memory of the first moment you experienced that, and how and how it shaped that space in you to be like, okay, tough skin, water off a duff's back? Because I know I'm emotional, so I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I can handle it. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I'm sensitive about that kind of stuff. No.
Yeah. You know what? I don't have a specific memory of that instance, because I feel like it's probably happened more often than, many. But I would say there was one instance where I was meeting with a client that was, or potential client that was actually African American, and they I guess thought that I should drive a certain car or, live in a certain house in order to work with them. Oh. And so that, I think, stuck out more in my mind than the other side, because I felt like, how can you judge me and we're the same? You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, I think that part surprised me more than anything else.
Wow.
But you think about it, if people are like, well, you're driving a Corolla, how can you service me? And I was driving a Corolla at the time. I was driving a Corolla, same Corolla from college. And so it's a lot of things is about image in this business, which is kind of sad to say, but that is the case. So it wasn't shortly thereafter, but sometime after, I did end up buying a luxury vehicle simply because it's about the image that you are portraying. Now, whether that has helped or hurt my business, I'm not sure, but I can say that was just kind of a shocking factor.
I can only imagine. Oh my gosh. Well, I just don't even know what to say about that. But I'm really taken aback because I mean, of course, I know that there's a lot of things going on, still classism, and of course, interracial prejudice, all those things. But just it's so deep, it's so sad and unfortunate because regardless of the fact they didn't even know that they had a diamond that it was that was going to give them 100%, and they chose to look at what you're driving as a means to them to make the determination that they don't want to work with you. That is just that's really crazy. That's ridiculous, and I'm offended for you. Where are they, family? Because no, I'm just kidding. But I know you've since moved on, and God has blessed you with the right right clientele and the right people with the right heart posture anyway. But I feel like sometimes God gives us those moments so that we can see it and be mentors for us up and coming real estate agents, or even just people within our sector, that to be able to just encourage them to keep going and keep pushing. And I'm happy that you were able to not allow that to break you or to make you feel a certain way, even though you still got your own luxury vehicle. You earned it, and but it wasn't about them. It was about you doing what's best for you and evolving, if I'm not correct. So at the same time, that does have to be tiring. But when did you say, okay, I'm just going to continue to do me, forget this notion that, this image is everything? Like, when did you finally settle into the confidence of, I'm going to continue to just give you this work regardless of what you see, Hello? For some reason, I can't hear you.
Erica?
Yes, we are back now.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Did you get a chance to hear the question?
I'm sorry, I did not. No.
It's okay. It's okay. So my question, for one, I was just leading into the fact that, sometimes it's like, okay, when do we get to the point where it's like, okay, I'm just going to continue to do me regardless? When did you finally get comfortable in dealing with those type of people, but just saying, okay, no, I'm not keeping up with the Joneses. I'm going to just continue to do what I do. And if they don't want to work with me, okay, when, in essence, when do you recognize when somebody is wasting your time in the real estate sector?
Yeah. I think those things kind of come up every year. So, you kind of get to a point where you figure out almost instantaneously when someone is wasting your time, but you just put measures in place to make sure that your time isn't wasted. So, for example, I make sure that all of my prospective buyer clients are pre-qualified. I will not start working, in terms of putting them in my car to take them to showings or, reviewing properties until they are pre-qualified. So early on, I had a lot of kind of buyers waste my time that either weren't pre-qualified or, ended up working for someone else. So I make sure they're pre-qualified and also make sure that they sign what's called a buyer's brokerage agreement, and whereas they're working exclusively with me. So I've just kind of put measures in place to make sure the least amount of time is wasted as possible.
I know that's right. Well, I definitely appreciate that. Now, switching gears, I want to say, before we switch gears, I would like to ask you, what would be some great tips that you would give prospective homeowners? What are some key things that are happening right now in the market, locally as well as possibly internationally, that you see, the trends that you see going on right now?
Even though there's a shortage of inventory, I would still say that if you see something, it might take a while in terms of finding the right property for you. But I would say, despite the fluctuations and increases in interest rate, if you want something, just go after it, because life is short and it's not going to. It may get better and it just may not. So don't, let those kind of factors, cause you to miss out on what you really want.
I like that. She said, just go for it. Just go for
Mm-hmm.
it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. So now we're going to switch gears to how we're balancing the mommy and work life. Are you ready for that vibe?
Yeah, and I would just say that there is always going to be time for the kids, and you just have to make time for the kids. There's been points to where I just had to let work kind of suffer a little bit because my kids are my first priority. But that's what I like about my business is that in terms of the flexibility. So, there are some things where I might miss out on certain work opportunities because I'm doing things or attending to things for my children. And that's okay. I accept that within myself because I know where my priorities lie.
Right, right. Now, when did you actually? So I always ask this question: when did you get inducted to Mommy Find Mommy? That is when you actually had your first child.
Yeah, that was 2019. That was 2019.
2019.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So then, once you finally when you finally, had your first baby, and then on top of that, of course, your wife, and then of course you have your professional aspirations. When did you feel like you found the sweet spot to find that balance for not only those different aspects of your life, but also your you time?
You don't. That's just a simple answer for it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You got to take it day by day.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take it day by day. It's not going to be I always get Sundays to myself, or I always get certain hours during the day to myself. It's always day by day. One day the kids' school might call me and say they need to be picked up at a certain time because they're sick, or one day work might be challenging to where I have to work the full day and I don't get the time to spend with the kids as much as I would like. So it's day by day. There really isn't a particular balance. Gotta keep going.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. I feel you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, with that being said, like, what are some of the tools that have assisted you in keeping your momentum of balancing career? Like, I know that you and working towards balancing everything that you can within your space of control. Well, technically, your space of stewardship, rather. That's the word I'm looking. What are some of the tools that you use?
I would say prayer.
Amen.
That's about the only thing that I have that I would say has been sustaining me kind of throughout, because it is challenging, especially when you have little ones. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, so it's going to be challenging. But just know that these times don't last forever in terms of it being challenging. So just keep staying in prayer and keep moving forward.
That's right. Ooh, yes, girl. Yes, girl. And so I know that being that you're closer to family, so I know that it takes a village to make the vision work. Who are some of the key members that you want to shout out for in your village that have been very instrumental in keeping things going with you?
Because they have been wonderful and been so instrumental in the development and lives of my children.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference being able to have that. And shout out to your parents; they're so sweet and amazing. And
Yes.
it's a blessing to have that, because some people were like, "Nope, I've already done what I did. It's your turn." So just being able to have that is beautiful.
Absolutely.
So, and I think you already mentioned it, just taking day by day, but just to make it concise for a new mom to try to figure out her own balance or their balance. What advice would you give them?
A new mom. I would say new momhood always comes with its challenges, because you don't really know what you're getting into until you actually get into it. People can tell you things all day long about what kids are like, et cetera, et cetera. But until you actually have kids of your own, it's kind of hard to say, what you should or shouldn't do. But, I've always said, just keep taking it day by day. You're going to learn things as you go. Don't beat yourself up. I think it's a big thing. A lot of people, including myself, you beat yourself up about the smallest things of what you didn't do right. and instead focus on more so on, what you are doing right.
That's right.
Instead of the quote unquote wrongs you're doing.
Yeah, girl, that's nothing but the devil. Because he wants to have mommy guilt, make us feel like we're inadequate at times. But we just have to keep standing. And like you said, you keep praying. And that's one of the key things that helps you go. I know I have to. It changes the whole day in the atmosphere. I just need that. So I totally get it. And I love that. Well, Constance, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your time, your wealth of knowledge.
Thank you.
I really appreciate everything. And if there's any information that you like to give as far as open-ended what's going on in your space or how people can reach you, would you like you can? This is your time right now to just go ahead and let the people know, girlfriend.
Yes. So I am, of course, with Atlanta Communities Real Estate Brokerage. I can be reached via office at 404-844-4977 and via email at constance@atlantacommunities.net.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to make sure that it's going to be inside of the show notes. So I'm going to get with you to make sure that we have everything together so you all can reach this queen. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Constance.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And for now, just know that you guys can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, and to know that nobody has like the blueprint to make it perfect. We just have to just keep on being, keep on trusting in the process and letting God do what he does best, which is guides us, navigates us, and gives us strength we didn't think we had. Am I right, Constance?
Absolutely.
Yes. So again, I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. And bye for now.
Okay.